Manish Sabharwal. He's the chairman and co-founder of Teamlease Services, one of the first movers, arguably one of the largest players in this space as well. Manish, good having you. Thank you so much for joining in. Appreciate you taking the phone call as well. Now, I know you can't really talk too much about the numbers. You must be in the silent period, so I won't get into what we'll do in the quarter. That we'll talk about once you come out with your numbers. But what got us thinking was this 2 or 3 notes that came out, which spoke about how, and probably stated the obvious, about how the total workforce versus organized staffing and flexi staffing being a minuscule percentage sets the stage for exponential growth over the next 10 years. Looking at all that you've done till now in Teamlease, arguably one of the lead indicators and one of the early movers in trade, do you believe that the stage is set for exponential growth for a company like yours and maybe for the sector at large, not just for the next 2 or 3, but probably for the next decade?
Well, absolutely. I mean, regulatory arbitrage. I mean, most of my competitors are criminals or politicians, right? So 99% of the industry has been informal. And I think that sense of humor about the rule of law, which is sort of the broader themes, I think, of demonetization, GST, RERA, ease of doing business, is a very important factor in sort of making the informal sector uncompetitive, because regulatory arbitrage is always easy, but when you're not enforcing the law. So I think that informal staffing, which is 99% of the industry, is going to get crushed if we continue on the current sort of trajectory of enforcing the law, of ease of doing business, many things. So my sense is that, we're still a baby in diapers relative to either the potential of the market and also the potential of India, right? So I think India's story will be a little different from China. China is sort of export-driven manufacturing. They were very lucky in 1978. They caught a 30-year super cycle of global growth, global openness to trade, and sort of deconstruction of manufacturing. India's story is a little different. Our story is economic complexity. India is very economically complex. We make everything and do everything. We don't always do it well, and we don't always do it at scale. So if the next 10 years are about domestic consumption, economic complexity as sort of India's story, staffing plays directly to that sort of game.
Okay, so I just want your thoughts on some numbers that I have. So total workforce of about 55 odd crores, organized flexi staffing less than 10 lakhs. One report says that even if we go on to the global average of the flexi staffing industry at about 1.5% of the total workforce, there is exponential growth possible over the next 3 years. Are these numbers on the button, and do you think we are moving towards that as a country?
Yeah, I mean, 1.5% is the workforce is the global average, but in France it's 10%, in Japan it's 15%, in the US it's 1.5%. So I would say that labor markets are path dependent, as historians say. So I think India will be at a higher level. I mean, today if you take official data of the total contract labor is 29% of the labor force, right? But 99.9% of that is informal. So what will happen is that 29% of the labor force will come down substantially, but the share of the formal sector will go up from less than 1% to 30, 40, 50, 60. It's hard to sort of estimate these things because we're talking of sort of multi-year, multi-decade transitions. But absolutely, I mean, we're still a baby in diapers. So our binding constraint is not addressable market. It's not capital. It's really just execution. We have to focus on the staffing companies in the formal. As long as it executes using people, process, technology, I think that there is a large sort of market here to be taken.
So are there challenges there as the size grows, Manish?
I mean, of course. I mean,
and there would be. All I'm talking about is whether there are unsurmountable challenges as the size grows. I mean, do you foresee problems on that front? It is a difficult industry to be in.
I think technology is becoming a big ally. I think Aadhaar is a big ally. I think Provident Fund reform is a big ally. I think so. Technology is turning out to be that enabler of not more cooks in the kitchen, but a different recipe, right? I mean, every time a company does its revenues, you have to sort of think about different processes. And in the past, that was largely around people and process. But now there's non-linear technologies, whether it is the cloud, whether it is machine learning, whether it is Aadhaar, whether it is mobile phone penetration. So we sort of reduce the friction for us. I mean, we have employees in more than 5,000 cities now, and obviously keeping in touch with them, paying them, keeping their attendance, and all that plumbing that goes into scaling is a challenge. But I would submit that, technology and internet adoption and mobile phone penetration and just an overall shift to the cloud is a huge enabler of distributed sort of workforces like us. So obviously there will be challenges in scaling, but I don't think there's any birth defect in saying we can't be 500,000 or 1 million employees up from our sort of 150,000 we are right now in a few years.
Yeah, so I know a lot of imponderables out there, Manish, but the question mark, I have two more questions really. One is whether numbers, and the reason I ask this is because now people, at least who are writing notes or analysts that we meet or investors that we meet, speak about potential of about 10x sizes for the existing companies over the next 10 years. Are these very optimistic numbers, or are these numbers which are easily possible, subject to, of course, as you said, execution being right?
Subject to execution is absolutely doable. I mean, the market penetration is not there. Employment has shifted from being a lifetime contract to a taxi cab relationship. I think employees think about employment differently. I think the many dropouts in the workforce are coming back. Some of education reform is coming together. So of the three problems in the labor market, matching, repair, and prepare, all three of them are not where I would like them to be, but I think they're coming together. So it's really the macro is in favor of the industry. So I think the industry will depend on micro management companies and their ability to sort of combine people, process, technology to handle scale. But India is ready for this industry. And in fact, much more welcoming of it than it was when we started about 15 years ago.